I'm Gertrude. Standing in my lakefront apartment, the city lights twinkling across the water, I look at the news on my phone. The front page headlines scream about a local business owner under fraud investigation and a family accused of an unauthorized collateral scheme. There, beneath the bold letters, are the pale faces of my brother, Henry, and my mother, Mrs. Thompson. It all started when I returned from closing a $16 million contract in Asia. My family, the Thompsons, were known in the small town for their flashy lifestyle and their favoritism towards my younger brother, Henry. While I had struggled to build my career from the ground up, Henry was always the golden child, getting everything handed to him. I remember the moment I got the message from my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. Gertrude, did you know your car is gone? Saw your brother driving it yesterday. My heart sank. That car was my pride and joy, the first thing I bought after years of hard work in getting out of debt. It was a symbol of my independence and success. When I landed back in the States, I drove straight to my parents' house. As soon as I walked in, I saw it in my mother's eyes. She had this air of false authority, trying to hide her guilt. He needed it more, she said flatly. You've always had enough. Those words stung. It was as if my years of sacrifice, working multiple jobs and living on a shoestring budget, meant nothing to them. Henry stood behind her, arms crossed, looking smug. He didn't even care that he had taken something that was mine. To him, my possessions were just there for the taking because he was the one who always got what he wanted. I was furious, every muscle in my body tense. My suitcase was still at my feet as I looked at them. Then, I spoke 6 words that changed everything. The deal's not in my name. My mother's face turned white, and Henry's smirk disappeared. I let the silence hang for a moment, then took out my passport and dropped it on the table. Everything you saw online, the $16 million, it's under the company's name. I had nothing liquid in my name during that trip, not even the car you pawned. My mother didn't believe me at first. You're lying, she said. But I pulled out my phone and showed her the bank statements. You thought you were pawning my car? You pawned collateral tied to an Asian contract worth more than this whole town. Henry cursed under his breath, and my mother covered her mouth in shock. I smiled faintly and asked, when the auditors come, who should I send them to? The next morning, the bank called. Miss Thompson, we're calling about the collateral under your vehicle registration. There seems to be an unauthorized pawn transaction. We need clarification immediately. I sipped my coffee, looking out at the city skyline. I'll clarify, but you need to talk to the people who pawned it. I wasn't even in the country. By noon, the auditors were at my parents' door. I watched the whole thing on the cameras I had installed years ago. My mother was trembling, saying, there must be some mistake. It was just a car, and she has plenty. The auditors were cold and professional. Ma'am, the car was tied to an international transaction. It's contractual property. Do you understand the seriousness of this? Henry tried to bluster his way through. Look, we'll pay it back. We'll fix it. She won't press charges. But I hit record on my phone and captured every word. That evening, I went back to their house. The room was quiet, and their pride was gone. I played the recording on my phone and said softly, the price won't be mine to pay. Henry slammed his fist on the table. You wouldn't dare turn that over. You'd ruin your own family. I leaned back and said, family? That word only shows up when you're in trouble. Where was family when you took what wasn't yours? My mother reached for me, her voice breaking. Gertrude, please. We didn't know it was tied to anything bigger. We thought it was just a car. I cut her off. Just a car? That car was collateral. The moment you signed it away, you signed yourselves into an international fraud investigation. My father, Mr. Thompson, who had been silent until then, said, you'll fix this. You have the connections and the money. We raised you, and we deserve that much. I laughed bitterly. You didn't raise me. You drained me, and you never saw the difference. I could see the fear in Henry's eyes. He knew this wasn't just about money. It was about his reputation, his business, and his freedom. I stood up and said, I'll give the auditors everything they need. Every document, every recording, every lie you've told. Over the next 48 hours, it was a storm. The auditors dug through the paperwork, and Henry's and my mother's signatures on the pawn slips were undeniable proof of their fraud. My phone rang non-stop with calls from my parents and Henry, but I ignored them. Then came the texts, going from desperate to venomous. Don't do this, Gertrude. We're blood. If you give them that recording, you'll regret it. You've always been selfish. Selfish? I almost laughed. Where was their concern when I was 25, living out of my car and scraping by while they funneled all the family money into Henry's business? By noon, I was sitting across from the auditors in their downtown office. I slid my phone across the table and played the recording. One of the auditors said, "Thank you, Miss Thompson. This will speed up the process. They can't get out of this now." When I left, my sister-in-law texted me. "If you ruin him, you ruin all of us." I replied, "He ruined himself. I'm not cleaning up his mess this time." That night, I poured a glass of wine and watched the city lights. For years, I had been the one they could always rely on, the safety net. But not anymore. I had given the truth to people who couldn't be bribed or manipulated. The next day, the headlines came out. The Thompsons' reputation was in tatters. The phone calls from our friends and business contacts changed. They were now on my side, saying, "Gertrude, I had no idea. You don't deserve this. I'm proud of you for standing up to them." When I drove past my parents' house, it was empty and quiet. There were no cars, no laughter. The front door cracked open, and my mother stood there, eyes red and shoulders slumped. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but I started the car and drove away. 3 days later, the begging began. My mother's texts were more and more frantic. "Gertrude, please. You don't understand what this is doing to us. Henry could lose everything. We're your family. Stop this before it's too late." Too late. It was too late when they ignored my birthdays and celebrated Henry's every little success. It was too late when they took my car without asking. The final voicemail was from my father. "Gertrude, you've made your point. Don't drag our name through the mud. We can fix this. Just give us a chance." But there was no fixing it. That evening, I attended a gala hosted by the company I'd closed the $16 million deal for. The CEO raised his glass in my honor, praising my hard work and loyalty. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen, not as Henry's sister or my parents' daughter, but as myself. Meanwhile, across town, Henry's office lights went out. His business accounts were frozen, and clients were pulling out. The golden boy was tarnished. As I left the gala, I saw another text from my mother on my phone. "Come home. Please. We'll do anything." I slid the phone back into my clutch without replying. They had burned that bridge. That night, at 10:12 p.m. There was a knock on my door. It was a weak, hesitant knock. When I opened it, my mother was there, with red eyes and shaking hands. "Gertrude, we've lost everything. Please stop this." I looked at her. This was the same woman who had always belittled my achievements. I set my wine down and said calmly, "You said I always had enough. That was your excuse to take from me, but you were wrong. What I didn't have was respect, and that's something you can't steal." She just stood there, her lips trembling. Behind her, Henry was in the shadows, looking defeated. I stepped back, put my hand on the door, and said softly, "You didn't just lose my car. You lost me." Then I closed the door. The silence that followed was not empty. It was freedom. For the first time, I felt like I was truly my own person, free from the chains of their judgment.